Hello, everybody. This is Catalyzing Conversations, conversations leading up to the free global virtual event called Catalyzing the Future. And very excited to have our guest here today, Mr. Ben Gilad. I'll turn it over to the organizer of the conference, and it's kind of his brainchild, Mr. Sai Alhir. Sai, why don't you go ahead and take it away, and we can start to talk to Ben here a little bit about competitive intelligence.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Todd, and it's great to have you here, Ben. I have been a huge fan for some time, and truly, I was just mentioning a few minutes ago all the wonderful work that Ben has contributed in the world. So thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you. And I can tell you, by the way, how I know that I've done very important work. My name, Gilad, is a biblical name. There is a chain of mountains in Israel, the Gilead Mountains, and they called it after me because of competitive intelligence. Can you believe it? They called a mountain after me. Okay, stop with that flattery and talk to me. Come on, I'm not a guru, and you don't need to tell me about my work. I know.
Very, very well said. Very well said. This is exactly why I really wanted to have you in this conversation. You're the real thing. That's what the world needs. So I want to dive into it and have you elaborate. You actually wrote something very recently, I believe, about skepticism, counterintuitiveness, if you will, alternative perspectives. What are you seeing out there, Ben? What should we be thinking about?
About 2 weeks ago, LinkedIn contacted me and asked me to do a newsletter. I think they go with people who post a lot, and God, do I post a lot because I'm bored out of my mind sitting at home. So I started a newsletter, and I thought, what would be a name of a good newsletter in my profession? And I called it the Skeptical Analyst, because if you're not skeptical, you're not an analyst. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the world today, especially the world of the young people, and Sai, you're not a teenager, but you're young. In my book, Todd is not. Todd is more in mind. Todd is a baby boomer or maybe late, next generation, but you're young. And the whole world today with the social networks and the big data and the Kardashian is one big non-skeptical world. They believe everything they are told. They believe socialism will change the world. They believe that political activism is the sign of intelligence. They believe in simplistic solutions. Don't pay your debt. Go free to college. Oh, hooray. And in business, it takes the form of, let's be positive all the time. You have to be positive. You have to fall in line. And you go on LinkedIn, and there are those influencers, as I call them. They are influencers, but they're not like influenza. I mean, like they are like a virus, and they give this incredibly insightful advice. Be kind. Treat your people well. They'll stay with you, and you win. And of course, complete garbage. It doesn't matter how you treat your people. The Chinese companies backed by the government, I don't think they treat their people so well. And they're killing the West. So what do I see in the world today? I'm seeing people who stop thinking. I'm seeing universities who stop teaching how to think. And I'm seeing old people like me having to take a torch, even though all I want is to retire. I don't play golf, so I'm not sure what I'll do if I retire. But old people like me have to remind to people who are supposed to be really aware of things that what they are being told is a pile of crap.
Well said, Ben. So looking at the landscape and looking at what we're experiencing, how do we shift? How do we wake people up? How do we change things? What do we do? What advice do you have, my friend?
Oh God, I have no advice. I mean, I've been fighting the good fight, if you want to put it this way, for ages, and you can see the world shifting in the wrong direction. And without going into politics, the wrong direction for me is anytime somebody thinks that the government can do something better than the free enterprise. And it gets worse and worse because the proponent of government action, and during COVID, this is so clear. We need the government, etc. Have replaced God with the government and are kind of instilling this idea that government can solve everything. And I'm an old school free market economist. I went through a PhD program at NYU. It's called the Austrian program. It's a school associated with the Hayek and Mises. And every time I hear somebody think there is a market failure, I know I'm talking to people who bought the bullshit. Hands down, they are slurping it, the Kool-Aid. The market is not failing. And if you believe the government is the solution, good luck to you. So I don't know how to change it. I mean, I'm writing, I'm preaching, I'm doing likes as much as I can. But they say that until people are 25 years old, the judgment center is not mature. So they fall for the slogans from Bernie Sanders, even though he's 125 years old. And they listen only to the things that are emotionally resonating with them. And emotions are wonderful until comes the big brother with the control cameras, etc., and tells you how the emotions should work in certain direction. I don't believe in emotional thinking. I believe in thinking, and I believe emotions are important, but I also believe in simple rational thinking. And in my world, a free market, even though we are not really in free market, not in the US, not anywhere else, but the US at least is close to somewhat free market. The free market can solve so many problems if people just stop believing government is the solution. But how to get there? I don't know. I'm gonna die in a few years. It's your world. What do you want from me?
I love your realism, man. I really do. So what do we do about it? I mean, if you could give direct advice to corporate leaders, senior leaders in government, etc., maybe what are the top 3 things that we should keep an eye on, Ben? What should we do? Those top 3 things, top of mind.
I will never give advice to people at that position because I'm not stupid. And people at that position have their own view of the world. They surround themselves with a close circle of advisors, and I'm nobody. So for me to go to Jeff Bezos and say, you need to do this and that, for God's sake. It's pretentious. So A, I don't talk to these people. B, if I had a few minutes with these people, I'll ask to see their Ferrari from the inside, because I never sat in a Ferrari. Beyond that, any kind of advice, what to do when you look at the world, etc., that's not my bread and butter. What I do for a living is I run war games. And in a war game, you have top leaders listening to their people that bring some expertise from the market, real expertise. So that at least for about a day, I take the top leaders and I turned off the McKinseys and BCGs and Deloitte and all those big consulting firms that charge $1 million per minute and give them nothing. And I said to them, listen to your people, because the best decisions, not necessarily 100%, but the best decisions are made when you have different perspectives. They enrich your view. And competitive intelligence is just that. It's listening to different perspectives. You make up your own mind. Whatever you want to do, do. And people who sit at the top of corporations and have 300,000 jobs to defend, or they have businesses. Anybody who thinks that Jeff Bezos needs advice is an idiot, because you know what he's done. But the only thing I can say is your people know much more than you think, and listening to them will bridge the gap between your wonderful ideas and the execution, which, according to research, is the #1 problem today. So if you want to bridge the gap, listen to your people in kind of a structured form, maybe war game, maybe some other form, but really listen to your people, because competitive intelligence is actually seeing different perspectives. Competitors, customers, regulators, suppliers, broadcasters see and taught, listen to a different way to look at the world. Maybe in all of that, you can find some nuggets that you can use. That's the only thing I can tell, and it's not really an advice. It's more like, listen, I've been there, I've seen this, and I've seen the results. it might help.
Yeah. No, I think that's tremendous wisdom, quite honestly. And the reason I say it is that it's proven and it is derived from wargaming and what have you. And it's understanding that space. What other lessons can we take from the work that you've done over the years, from the experiences you've had? What other lessons can we benefit from?
Oh God, there are so many of them. Never believe anything you're told. Hey, never, ever. Consider all the jargon by the new social marketers to be pile of junk. If you are hiring the big consulting firms, you're 3 years behind, and they'll tell you what everybody else is already saying. Always try, at least if you are in competitive intelligence, okay? And I have 2,500 competitive intelligence professionals out there in the world that I trained personally. They went through my sweatshop, because it's not just a war, it's a sweatshop. And what I usually tell them is, if you want to get anybody to listen to you, say something they don't know. Because if all you do is you report on what you see and you compile data, or you run machine learning and deep learning and all this nonsense, then you're going to get the results of 50 years ago, and nothing will change, and you're going to follow trends that are already no longer there, but the big data show you what happened. So if competitive intelligence people want to succeed, they have to look at things from a different angle. Always try to look at things from a different angle, because the idea of strategy is doing something different than others. You have to understand what others are doing, but that's not the most important point. The most important point is, can you look at something a little differently? It is so hard, for God's sake. I run war games, and the first part of a war game is role-playing competitors and thinking how the market is evolving and where you're going, and it's fun and game, it's wonderful. And then comes the part where you have to say, okay, what do I do? What's my strategy in this world? Post-COVID, pre-COVID, in COVID, out COVID, whatever. Strategy is the most difficult thing in the world. People think strategy, it's 5 people sitting in a room, SVPs and CEOs, and come up with a vision, and the marketing agency polishes it, and the marketing communication write it in full sentences, and we have a strategy. Strategy is the most difficult thing in the world, because to stay different is an enormous challenge. And the easiest thing is just to be comfortable and do what you do, and imitate a few people and be reactive and try to run after your own tail. This is the normal way of running operations. Strategy requires you to actually look at the world and say, how do I stay different? How do I keep my distinction? So consultants come up with all those words: agility, anti-fragility. I've seen your words, okay? The post-COVID world, the new norm. These are wonderful slogans, and I'm all for those wonderful slogans. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking at the world with a skeptical eye, and I say, okay, today it's agility, 2 days from now it's going to be something else. Yesterday it was hyper competition, today it's the only thing you need to look at is how do you see things differently. And that's what I'm trying to teach, by the way, the academy. Seeing things differently. And it's not as easy as it sounds, because most of us want to see things the way the Kardashians see them. So, and the Kardashian was canceled. Can you believe it? I was shocked. I went into the corner and I cried for 2 days. The Kardashian was, but most of the world today are the Kardashians. These are the celebrities. So I'm old, I'm cynical, I'm sarcastic. I don't believe anyone. Surely I don't believe marketing communication. Every time I hear an executive talks about all the good things they are doing, I start puking. I hate the woke CEOs who are just jumping on the wagon of let's feel guilty because we are white. And I'm hoping to die before the world becomes this mushy, disgusting thing it's becoming. Unfortunately, I have good genes. So it might not happen that quickly.
So fortunately we need more voices like this. There's two statements. I have to read them because I think they're absolutely brilliant in the writing that you put out there. And this is about the statements. being counterintuitive with some persuasive narrative is magic.
Yes.
That captures a crystallized thought, a very powerful thought.
Yeah, because people go in front of executives, and the difference in status and power is enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And they are supposed to tell the executive something that the executive haven't thought about. And if all you give are the facts, because you're one of those researchers or data scientists, or you believe in AI, augmented deep learning, use all the jargon in the world, they already had it a million times. And you're not capturing their attention, they tune out after about 15 seconds. So narrative is extremely important. Actually, it's more important than collection, it's more important than analysis, it's more important than anything. The story you tell has to capture their attention, because if they're not listening, you have done nothing. I usually tell my trainees in the room, the best analogy is the famous story, if a tree falls in a forest and nobody hears, did it make a noise? This is competitive intelligence. You can have the best competitive information in the world. If your story doesn't get them interested, you are buried in room 200D in the bottom of Google basement, and the guy at the top doesn't even know you exist. So keep on churning, but nothing in there. So you've got to tell an interesting story. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be an interesting teacher. I'm trying to tell interesting story, but you are wrong about one thing. When you say we need more people like me, no, we don't, because then I become a consensus.
Mm-hmm.
The minute I become a consensus, I'm irrelevant.
Yep.
I want to be different, so don't. Nobody should be cynical. Please don't make people skeptical. I want to be the only one.
Well said. Counterintuitive narratives, very powerful. And then I have to say this next statement, and you already touched upon this. Compassion is overrated. And then you continue, compassion replaces clear reasoning. You have no idea, dear sir, how much I agree with you.
And
because I too am a skeptic. So please.
We are both going to be ostracized by society after we just said that.
But you're presuming that we haven't already been ostracized.
You're right. Well, I don't know. I'm sitting in the room, I see nobody, I talk to nobody. So how would I know if I was?
Well said. Well said.
Compassion, yeah. Compassion is, I remember when I was 15, I read Ayn Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the minute you say you read Ayn Rand, they consider you a romantic idiot. Oh, it's only good for teenagers. Fine, morons. If you don't want to believe there is some truth in her, go with Bertie Sanders. So I went, and when you start reading her serious stuff like Anthem and the Principles, you realize, and especially in Atlas Shrugged, I think, she described people actually using compassion to exploit it for their benefits. And this is what you see around you all the time. I mean, without mentioning names or parties, most of the people who claim to be for the people, what we're doing is public service, are doing it because they want to attain something, mostly hunger for power. Power usually brings money, but the worst kinds are not even after money. I mean, people like Bernie Sanders are not very rich. It's the power to make decisions for you and me that makes them tick. I mean, it gives them an erection. And the idea is that compassion, if you have compassion for people without expecting anything, wonderful, okay. But if you're talking about, let's talk about some issues like immigration, okay? I'm an immigrant. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I came here legally, I obtained the citizenship in America and all that. And I can immediately, I feel total sympathy to families making the trek from Honduras or Guatemala through the famous trains in Mexico and get to the United States and bring their kids with them because they want better life. Who the hell doesn't feel compassion for them? But when it comes to the policy, then the question is, what do? Do you open the borders completely? Do you get 59 million South Americans into the United States? So a compassionate policy that harp on the emotions usually end up harming everybody.
Yeah.
You need common sense, you need reasoning. You can't let the emotional input actually govern the policies that you have. So for example, with immigration, I'm actually for opening the border, if they can find jobs here and they don't get welfare. So in a free market, if somebody comes here and can find a job and can rent a house, they have to leave. But if the state gives them welfare and housing and medical, etc., why would they ever leave? Free markets solve a lot of problems, but of course, it's not compassionate, because free market talks about trying to elevate everybody, and there was always going to be inequality. I'm all for inequality, because if we are all equal, we are in North Korea.
Yep.
And God, I don't want to be in North Korea.
Ben, these are such fundamentals that you're referencing around free market, etc. And as respectfully, as much as you focus on competitive intelligence, the claim that I make is organizations, people don't deal with reality anymore. They deal with a delusion, and they don't deal with human nature, because people are people. They're not good or bad. They're just a mix of all of that. And we've gone historically, to your point, we've gone this far. If we're not going to wake up, we're going to end up destroying ourselves. And I don't mean compassion. I mean waking up to the reality around us of who we are and what we're capable of.
Give me more. Give me more. What do you mean by who we are?
Fundamentally, if the people I encounter, business, they don't deal with reality. Exactly to your point, they want everything to be happy, good, mindful, compassionate, all the labels that you have emphasized. People aren't dealing with, and this is very sadly, I mean, my daughter is 25. I think about the future that she has to exist in and to live in, where the critical thinking is not happening, examining what decisions we make, deferring, shying away from conflict. People don't know how to deal with conflict anymore. They just shy away from it. It's an interesting.
100% correct. Man.
Yeah,
100% correct.
And Ben, exactly to your. I have to be very honest with you. Exactly like you just said. I don't want to be here a year from now if this is the direction we're headed in, man.
No, you're right. And you look at how people think today. You look at the conformity. You look at the left using censorship like it has never been used before. Oh, okay, no, that's not true. When the conservatives were in power in the 13th or 14th century, they used the Inquisition to silence people. Uh-huh. And they were quite effective. I mean, when you are burning, it's hard to say what you think. So the left today doesn't use burning. Oh, they do. They have the riots, but this is a different issue. The left today will shut you up by canceling you, by calling you racist and bigot. That's all those words that mean shit, because they don't mean anything beyond them, aside from going for the emotional output. And this is horrible in the academia. I used to be an academic for 18 years at Rutgers University in New Jersey. I don't know if I would have survived today in the academia, because you can't say anything. You offend somebody. God forbid you offend somebody. So the world controlled by this type of people is going closer and closer to the Chinese mindset of you all follow the same orders and there are the cameras and together it's going to be a chip in our brain someday. And if we even think about anti-progressive idea, and I say progressive like this because they're not progressive, they're going back actually, then we're going to be put in little camps or maybe big camps. We're going to be re-educated by people on the left because we are thinking completely wrong. I'm glad that I'm much older than you. That's all I can say, Steve. Okay? I'm so glad you have at least 40 more years to go. I don't.
Oh, but believe me, my good man, I wish I had 40 more years. I'm a lot older than I look, I assure you.
Okay, fine. You're as misleading as I am. Fine. My daughter is 29, your daughter is 25. We can make them.
You got it. Exactly,
okay.
Exactly.
Right.
Todd, how about you chime in, my good friend? I know I've dominated the conversation with Ben selfishly.
Not at all. I appreciate that. It was good to just kind of hear a little bit about what your perspectives are, Ben. I'm going to pick a little bit of a fist fight with you, if that's okay.
Please. Yeah, otherwise it's boring.
So isn't there the same kind of hegemony that's happening on the right? I mean, like the whole left versus right politics seems like bullshit to me. Like there's got to be a greater diversity of opinions, and from everything that I've seen in living with the right, for the past 4 years, that there's just this terrible hegemony of like wanting to make believe that we're going back to the 1950s when everything was happy smiles and gratitude.
You know that I was born in the 50s.
Sorry?
I don't remember. I was born in the 50s. I don't remember the happy smile, but I was born in Israel. It was hard to smile in Israel. We didn't have food.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what the right means. I'm neither right nor left. I'm a libertarian. We are hated by both. The left hates us completely because I'm against progressive tax. And the right hates me because I'm for abortion. So we are the pariah of the world, the libertarians. We believe in people making their own choices and being responsible for it. So I'm not even sure what the right means. Trump is not the right. Trump is just a populist. And the ultra-right and Bannon and Breitbart and all those people, they don't speak to me. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, go on your tangent. It's the people who want freedom, free market, free choices, free thinking that I like to be with. Where do you find them? I think still you find them more a little bit on the right today because the right is under pressure. You don't find too many of them. The left is much more cohesive. If you look at voting in Congress, the left votes in one voice. You might say, okay, it's because they are in the opposition, but when the Republicans were in the opposition, they never voted as a bloc all the time. There are always some dissents among Republicans because it's not clear what they're for. They span a little spectrum. There is no dissent among Democrats. This is scary. There is no dissent. They are all in the same, always anti-Trump, always hate everything that the right says. So you're right. It's not right and left, but the left is becoming so bad. I find myself defending the right and defending Trump, even though I think he's a narcissist with a very limited vocabulary, but at least he makes sense. His policies, to me, make sense. The policy of the left scared the hell out of me. Come on, fight with me.
I have exactly the opposite perspective.
Excellent. I love it. So give me a narrative.
So I was interested also in what you were saying about the use of war games and that the idea of I think all three of us have been in situations where we've been in front of executive leaders in a boardroom and they've glazed over, they've lost it, they've lost attention, and so that the point that you make about needing to tell a story in a new way really stands out for me. Have you found that maybe getting them to think about things in war game scenarios has been a way to change that mode of thinking, or are there other kinds of approaches that you brought to bear that you found effective? Because in my experience, it seems that so many, like the military is used to wargaming. That's their world. That's the history that they came out of.
Yeah.
That's basic training at West Point. But a lot of corporations, I don't see them actively engaging in a lot of wargaming. Has that culture changed over the years?
Yes and no. Wargame today is much more accepted. I mean, there are some companies where you can't say the word war games. It's not politically correct. So you call it strategy pressure testing. In one form or another, about 25% of the Fortune 500 do wargaming on a regular basis. And when I started it in 1982, there was nobody. Nobody even knew the word wargaming. So it's much more accepted today. Military war games, it's interesting that you think military war games are honest, because the most famous war game is the Millennium War Game, which I'm sure you're familiar with, in which this colonel from the Marines, von Ripper, which is a wonderful name for the colonel, actually sunk the 5th or 6th Fleet in the Persian Gulf, playing some unnamed Iraqi dictator starting with an H. And his strategy was not to communicate through regular channels because the blue team was listening. And he was the red team. So he sent motorcyclists with messages. And at one point in time, 6,000 fishing vessels turned around and exploded. And the 6th Fleet sunk. So the Pentagon stopped the game and told von Ritter, this is not according to script. You've got to use communication that we can listen to. $250 million on a war game, okay? So The challenge of war game is really to change the mindset, and that's what I tell my clients when they come to me. There were many war games I refuse to run, even though it's good money, and I'm capitalist. When an executive comes to you and you feel that all he wants is to confirm his opinion, I don't want to play these games. It's my reputation on the line. So when I go to a game, I tell the executive my only test whether I've done well or not is if I changed the mindset of the top team. If they get out of the game the same way they got in, I fail. If they do anything with it, it's beyond my power. But if they think the same way, the war game was useless. Now, to tell you that every war game is success, no way in hell. I fell on my face dozens of times. But a few war games that are success, it's like, boom, mind-blowing, because the executive comes to the room, and it has to do with executive personalities, no doubt, but it also has to do with his people. And his people, whether or not they are honest, depends upon the executive personality. So this loop. But they come to the room, and the people are passionate, and they role-play competitors well, and suddenly the wonderful plan on the table that looked like it's impossible not to succeed, because very fragile. I remember one game, I won't mention names because we are live, I mentioned it in my training, one game in which a competitor team played Procter & Gamble against my client. It decimated my client. It was pathetic to look. I felt sorry for my client. The VP hated the game. The VP went out and says, you never bring him back to this company. But the game actually was for a private company, so the people above him actually listened. And therefore, the plan on the table was not executed. I don't know what would have happened if, there always the question, but it's this idea that sometimes if you role play a third-party perspective well, you can change your mindset. And that's all war games supposed to do. So it's not stealing the flag from the enemy, it's not one of those war games.
Oh, right. That I think more complicated, more interesting scenarios.
A little bit more.
Yeah. As a longtime gamer, I can definitely see the value of complicating.
Gamer as in computer games?
I grew up with board games, card games, war games.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Instead of playing baseball and football and all that stuff, I grew up with dice and.
It's okay. I never ever played a game on a computer, not once in my life. I mean, my kids, sure, but I never understood this pleasure in doing and killing 5 million people. I mean, if I could kill 5 million in real life, let's talk. But if I do it on the computer, what the hell?
Right. Well, the thing is, no matter how good the computer games are, they straitjacket you into certain kinds of decisions and roles that you don't get. In a live scenario, in a live like business wargaming scenario, where it could go anywhere, and where you've got humans on every side of the engagement. There's a lot more diversity of things that can happen.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. People ask me, why is it called war game? And I tell them, first of all, it's not war. Forget it. Business is not war. It's a sick mindset. But it's not really a game. And there are people who offer simulations and computer games and game theory. I mean, I'm an economist, so game theory is big in some circles. None of them comes even close to the complexity of strategy in real world, and the complexity of the people who have to actually do it, and the complexity of the opponents who might not actually play dead. So computer games are fun, but you're right. Real war games, oh God, they're complicated. That wasn't much of a fight, Todd. You promised me a fight. You said, I disagree with everything you say, and we agree at the end that war games are fun, but so... Okay,
I didn't want to monopolize the conversation, but okay, I'll monopolize.
I don't care. I mean, for me, it's like I'm sitting with friends, and this is the closest I come to. So monopolize whatever you want.
So
what else? Yeah.
It feels to me like there are, situations with the right and the left that are just being manufactured right now to manipulate perception, and the false distinctions there. Right? Where one of the things that I did agree with you on is that we're neither right nor left. That most of us are a mix of these kinds of things. And facing reality of that, the sooner that we face that, the better. But the fact that our public politics don't reflect that diversity of views or the ability for people to have both of those things is absolutely maddening, and it's tearing the country apart in some terrible ways. I think the area where I want to fight you is where you're saying, well, it's the poor right that's been, kind of more beset by this. I see it as the other side of it, and that's why the left has, been acting so embattled by so much of this stuff. But I feel like we could have an all afternoon conversation about that. So.
Okay, I often go and fight on LinkedIn again because I'm bored. 90% of what I do is because I'm bored. So I go fight on LinkedIn with people who claim it's fake news, mostly from the right. Okay, it's fake news. CNN is not fake news, and the New York Times is not fake news. It's a fake perspective. Fake in the sense that you select what facts will serve your narrative, and I don't blame them. Mm-hmm. Sure. But think about that, Todd. There are 3 major networks, 4 major newspapers, 2 or 3 news cable networks, and they're all on the left, and there is 1 poor Fox News. And I'm not sure the balance is that the left is embattled. I think the right is now under the defense. But what interested me in what you said is you said you're on the right for the last 4 years. What does it mean? You are evangelist?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch.
You said that you were on the right for the last 4 years. Or maybe I misunderstood.
No, I definitely have not been on the right. Yeah.
I didn't mean to insult you.
No. I don't think I want to be
in trouble now with these people. Okay, I misunderstood. Sai, anything else you want to ask me? What do you remember of Baghdad?
Say that again, Ben.
What do you remember of Baghdad?
Oh my God. I was a year old when I left, my good man. Okay. Oh, that's ages. That's around 60 years plus ago.
Okay. I thought maybe you have some memories like I do from Israel. You have them from Iraq. Okay, forget it. So you're completely UK raised.
I grew yes. I spent my first 3 years in the UK.
Okay.
And then the rest of it is here in the States. So, and
you're American.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah,
right.
over 60 years old, man. I'll tell you, I'm there.
Come on, kid. Don't give it to me. I'm close to 70.
So Ben, I'll tell you the big thing for me, and this is one of the reasons I have been so attracted to you, is because we need more people to deal with the reality. People are not dealing with the reality. And I'm not talking about left or right. I'm talking about the reality of just everything that we're experiencing. And now, especially with COVID, it's forcing us to confront the issues that we've shied away for so long and have lacked the courage to confront.
And this,
very simply, when you gave a perfect example, actually, when you talk with leaders, they want to talk about their people, right? We want to talk about compassion. Well, people are not good. People are not bad. They're a mix of all of that. On some days, right, you're going to get a Ben who's extremely contributory. On another day, Ben is going to have an off day and he's not going to contribute anything in an organization.
I think these will be more the days. Ben.
There you go. But I do, okay. So I mean, this is very openly, this is the reason I really wanted you to express yourself, is because we need to deal with the reality. And you said it perfectly. We talk about free will. We're in the middle. We're on neither side, and we need more skeptics in the world. We truly do.
Everything is sugar coated, and when you, it's like the leaders, political and business, feel compelled to not be honest. God forbid what will happen if you tell your people we have difficulties or we need more help in innovation. No, everything is. And when you read annual reports, and you can understand why, given the structure of public companies and how they are controlled, why annual reports have to give a glorious, but the whole facade of dishonesty is disgusting. I mean, when I go into the war game, the first thing I tell the people is I'm going to insult the hell out of most of you because I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to be smiling because the market is not nice and the market is not smiling at you. And I said to them, I'm here to save jobs and wealth.
Yep.
I'm not here to play nice. And there are so many people who believe harmony is important and consensus and confronting reality. No. So you're completely right on that side.
Yeah. And Ben, similar to what you said about clients, most people and most clients can't go through the struggle of dealing with reality. So they either give up or they stop or they do something else. And respectfully, I have fired more clients than I care to count. And I have been asked, or I have asked myself for them to fire me because they're not prepared to go through the struggle. And I'm very comfortable with that. Very much in the same way, exactly as you said. And very much, and honestly, very much in the same way that you said it perfectly. I'm not here to make people feel good. I'm not here. It's a very different. Yeah. I digress. You know exactly why I reached out to you.
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. I really want to thank you for your time tremendously. Okay. And likewise, Todd, please chime in, but thank you, Ben. Thank
you, Sai. Todd, I apologize sincerely for a few seconds thinking you're on the right. I'll tell everybody now, you're on the left, you're on the left, you're on the left. Okay? I'm forgiven.
Totally, nothing to forgive, my friend. Not at all. I'm looking for a good fit, right?
Listen, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
It took away my boredom for 50 minutes. Come back sometime because I'm going to be bored in the next 20 years.
Very good. Very good.
Ciao.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right, Sai, I think that's it. With that, just want to encourage everybody to go to catalyzingthefuture.com for more great conversations, fisticuffs, and excitement that's going to be happening on the 30th of September this year. I tell you, Sai, it was a really fun conversation with Ben. He's an interesting guy. Philosophically, he's the kind of guy I'd love to sit down, with a glass of beer or wine and just kind of have it out with him over the evening. So,
or a great Starbucks. You know how much I love Starbucks.
I know. Extra caffeine, although that might not be a good combination.
Understood. Always a pleasure being with you, Todd. Thank you so much, my good friend.
Likewise, Ty. Thank you so much. And for everybody else, please follow us at catalyzingthefuture.com, where you can sign up for a day of amazing conversations like this one and more. So please join us there. For now, that's it. Signing off.